Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you may be around the world, tuning us via YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter for the Athletes Hub. This is a momentous day for the Athletes Hub. This is episode 1 of the False Nine podcast, where we will talk all things soccer, no matter where it is, UK, MLS, anywhere in Europe or around the world. My name is Luke Jobson. But I'm the pretty face behind everything. The man with the smarts, John O'Fearby, joins us from over in the UK. How are you, mate?
I'm good. Just getting over the last night's Champions League game, which was one of the best we've seen for a while, which we'll get on to.
Yeah, it was. It's been a wild couple of days. It's been a wild couple of days when it comes to Champions League football, and I mean, we might as well dive straight into it with Manchester United. It's I say Ollie at the wheel with it being a crisis. It's a crisis in the sense that it's a crisis for fans because we don't know what Manchester United's going to show up. It was a 3-2 win against Atalanta. But it really was, the tale of two halves for Man United, down 2-0 at the break, and then, the United of old comes back.
Yeah, and without wanting to put too much of a damper on it, it should be remembered Demiral, the Turkish defender for Atalanta, was the best player on the pitch first half. He got injured second half, and Ronaldo snuck into that hole that he vacated, and burned another notch in his legend. That's twice now Manchester United have had him come back, score a late winner, and suddenly they're on 6 points. And it doesn't end the crisis. I think it papers over the cracks. I think the fault lines with that team have been evident for quite a while. But it's Liverpool on Sunday, and if they do win that, it'll all be forgotten, or at least postponed. And if they lose, then we'll be back to crisis on Monday morning. So,
but it's a never-ending cycle.
It is.
It's every 2 months we go from Ollie's at the wheel. He's going to take them back to the days of Sir Alex Ferguson. They then have 1 or 2 bad games, and the fans come out. They call for Ollie to fire, to get fired. He goes to Europe, has a mediocre result, and then a great result. And it's just that, that toxic cycle of, is he in, is he out? And let's be real here. Looking at the coaching post Sir Alex Ferguson, it's not exactly something that you want to write home about either, with how some of those managers have been treated.
No, to be fair to United fans who actually go to Old Trafford, they very rarely call for the manager's head. And those that travel in away matches, they always sing for their team. They don't sack for the manager. They don't sing "You're getting sacked in the morning," or not that I'd seen. But it is just such a huge club that the media circus around it is never ending. And I think we've had 3 years of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer now, and we know how this plays out. They are fantastic for a few months. Then they hit a rough spot. He's not a terrible coach, but he's not a great one. And if this was Pep Guardiola or Jurgen Klopp, when they've had problems, they're coming back. It'll be fine. They'll win things. You look at Liverpool last season. I don't think anyone thought, even when they were getting beaten at home by Fulham, that this was the end of the era and that Klopp had lost the plot. It was just a bad spell. They'd get through it. They would be winning again. And sure enough, look where they are now. Whereas with Manchester United, it's more fits and starts. When it's great, it's really great. And when it's bad, it's really bad. And he's just not... He's an average manager, I would say. And in some areas of the Premier League, that can be enough. You think back maybe 6 or 7 years when Pellegrini was at City, and he wasn't a great manager, but he had an expensive squad, and he was good enough to get them over the line. In this era where you've got Guardiola, you've got Klopp, and obviously a lot of money, and Tuchel as well now at Chelsea, it's just not ever going to be quite enough. And that's why we just keep coming back to this. Not that all of the club's problems are his fault.
I mean, some of that does have to fall back on the owners.
Yeah.
Some of that has to fall back on Ed Woodward and some questionable recruiting at times.
Mm-hmm.
You can't argue the deal to bring Ronaldo back on what's realistically a cut price deal for who is still one of the world's best, if not the world's best.
Yeah.
Is it as a United fan, for me it's pretty safe to say no Ronaldo, probably no Ole Gunnar Solskjaer by the end of the year.
Yeah, I think with Ronaldo, for all he brings, and he is still a fantastic player, but he's 36, he's 37, I think, in February. So this is not a long-term strategy. This is absolutely must win now. It's now or never. And for that, you really need a manager who's going to win now, like Antonio Conte, who happens to be out of work right now. And every few weeks he gets linked with this job. He would be the one who could carry them forward. But I think with Ronaldo, yes, he's fantastic, but it's also forced Solskjaer into some odd positions. Like Mason Greenwood now who is the future number 9, could go on and be that for Manchester United and England for many years. And he's playing on the right wing, so his development has been stunted. It also means Jadon Sancho isn't playing. It also means Paul Pogba is having to play a deeper position, which doesn't suit him. So they're moving all the pieces around to accommodate the fact that Ronaldo has to play every big game at number 9. And it almost feels like an international team where you have, like we had with maybe Belgium a few years ago, we had these fantastic individuals, and you thought, okay, who fits where? Because you've got 2 or 3 that could play the same position, and then nobody who can play over here. And it's just parts that don't fit together, and that's really when you need a top manager to really make those parts fit. Because we talk about Klopp and Guardiola, the number of times they bought players and people are going, well, that doesn't work. He doesn't fit because you've got this player. And suddenly they put them all out, and through his coaching, wham, it works. And Ole, it's almost like you or me picking the team that yeah, this should work, but they just don't fit together properly. And it just feels like a never-ending cycle while he's there.
It's a painful cycle. As a United fan, it's a painful cycle. But look, we'll take it from there. I'm sure, fingers crossed, everything will be great. We'll go undefeated the rest of the year, win the Champions League, win the FA Cup. We'll still somehow find a way to lose the EPL, but it's fine.
I think the other thing to say on it was, one thing that was so telling this season was, I know it's not their priority, but the Carabao Cup, when they went out to West Ham, all right, it was a reserve 11, but so was West Ham's. And yet West Ham, managed by ex-Manchester United manager David Moyes, everyone seemed to know what they were doing. Everyone looked motivated. Everything seemed to work. Whereas Manchester United, it was 11 individuals who looked like they'd been thrown out on the pitch and said, well, you're all world-class players, you figure it out. And yeah, I just think that seems to be Ole in a microcosm, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Well, in my case, fortunately, because I support Leeds, but anyway.
Oh, the heart burns. Well, then you wouldn't be too mad about this next. I say not too mad. Yeah, it might actually be a bit more mad than one would think. Newcastle United. Mike Ashley is gone. Finally, depending on who you ask, a massive takeover. But yeah, there has been a lot of controversy.
Yes.
Because of the, I don't know if I can say alleged actions that have been taken by the new owners. And it's, I believe I read somewhere earlier this week that all the clubs currently in the EPL agreed that, maybe we shouldn't allow any of their sponsors, the new owners' companies, to sponsor Newcastle at the moment, or have naming rights for the stadium at the moment.
Yeah.
But this is big. This is Newcastle United, potentially now the richest team in the UK, if not all of Europe.
Yeah.
And what happens here? Like, if you're Newcastle, do you want the money and take the questionable ethics, or do you kind of hold steadfast on the ethical side of things?
It's such a difficult one for fans, because we should say fans don't get a choice in who the owners are. That you just get the owners you have, and you have to accept that. I mean, just to go through briefly what has happened. The majority shareholder now at Newcastle is a company called PIF, which is the sovereign wealth fund of Saudi Arabia. The head of that is the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, who is obviously also the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, so he's the head of state. And this country has a particularly bad human rights record on all sorts of fronts. And we can say that's more than sort of innuendo. It is coming from Amnesty International, it's coming from various international organizations. It's not great. The thing that's been sort of distressing, I suppose, about this has been Newcastle fans. I can understand, yes, Mike Ashley gone is a net good thing, and no one would dispute that his ownership of that club was appalling. But that doesn't mean you have to be a cheerleader and a propagandist for what are basically people who have been accused, well, more than accused, of being human rights abusers. And that's the bit I found difficult to swallow. It's very... People are not attacking this. They're not attacking Newcastle United. They are attacking the owners. And I really think the fans, I can understand the excitement about the money, but what the source of that is should give you pause for. I know some Newcastle fans, that's the case. I've seen all sorts on social media on this. But there's an awful lot of Newcastle fans, including the fanzines, who are taking a very sort of whataboutery attitude about it, which is to say, one example I saw was there was a host of a more popular podcast than ours, I'm sorry to say, who made some points about this takeover. And there was then a stream of replies from Newcastle fans on Twitter, which admittedly is not the place to go for intelligent conversation, saying things like, but your podcast is supported and sponsored by a betting company, so people in glass houses and that. And it's like, yes, betting in sports media or betting companies advertising is quite a problem in sports media, but there's no moral equivalence between that and people who chop other people's heads off, which is what we're talking about. So I think there's a bit too much of that. I would hope once the excitement at Mike Ashley being gone has died down over the next few weeks, then this does... some critical thinking goes on with Newcastle fans. Whether or not it does, we'll just have to wait and see.
But at the end of the day, it really can't be taken back now.
No.
Club's been bought. They're now one of, if not the richest club in the UK. You'd be hard pressed to not say the all of Europe as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I was going to say, with money comes responsibility. Steve Bruce out.
Yeah,
he was out earlier in the week, which isn't overly surprising.
No,
but does someone like an Antonio Conte come in? Do the new owners essentially give him a blank check? Say, write the number, do what you want?
The problem they're going to have is they're going to be hemmed in by financial fair play. And that's why the other clubs, apart from Manchester City, strangely enough, voted to stop the owners using their companies as sponsors, so that basically they're basically circumventing the rules if they do that, which is what City got into trouble with UEFA not too long ago. Because obviously there's there's always been that alleged direct link between Etihad Airways and so on and the owners of Manchester City. The clubs are keen to avoid a repeat, so that Newcastle have to spend relative to their revenue. Otherwise, they'd be banned from playing in Europe, which obviously means they could never get to Champions League money. So they can't really write a blank check. The problem compared to what we've seen in the past is if you go back to Chelsea when they got rich, when Abramovich came in, there was no FFP. They already had a team that was in the Champions League. Frank Lampard was there, John Terry was there. So with the countless millions coming in, they could just dominate and won the league within 2 years. And they dominated for quite a few years in England until things settled down. With City, even there, they had a brand new stadium from the Commonwealth Games. They had Joe Hart, Micah Richards, Vincent Kompany. They were already at the club. It took longer because they were further back, but it took 4 years and they won the league. With Newcastle, they're in the relegation zone. They haven't won a game yet. There's no European money coming in. So it's going to be a slow process. The priority has to be to survive. You can really forget people like Conte in the short term because he's only going to go to a team that can win at the moment. That's Manchester United or Real Madrid or whoever. And Newcastle, they need the bridge manager to get them there. At the minute, the favourite's Paulo Fonseca, the former Roma manager, which isn't an especially inspiring name, given the money. But again, he just has. It's someone that has to come in, make sure they survive this season, and try and get them at least to the point where they're competing for maybe Europa League, that level. But even then, not only FFP, the other problem Newcastle have got is that there's more money generally around the Premier League. You look at clubs like Aston Villa, at Everton, they've got billionaire owners who are pumping a lot of money in as much as they can. So it's much harder. Just having money now isn't as big as it was maybe in 2004 and 2008. And then you've also got the bad publicity that comes with the Saudis. So it's an intriguing situation to watch. But January transfer window, it won't be a Kylian Mbappe or Raheem Sterling or Erling Haaland. It's going to be players who are perhaps out of favour at big clubs that other big names don't want to touch. Maybe someone like Coutinho. And otherwise, it's just going to be players who are just solid, good Premier League players to get them out of trouble because the squad they have does look like a championship team.
Out of their squad, I could say comfortably that if they went down this year, I'd see Callum Wilson stay up.
Yeah.
Potentially, I would see St. Maxim stay up.
Yeah. And I can't think of a third. Maybe Matt Ritchie's not a bad player, but again, there's a lot of players in that team that you'd think it was a promoted team because there's a lot of players you think, okay, he'd be a good championship player, definitely be top 6 with that squad, but in the Premier League, going to struggle. And, Rafa Benitez had a very similar group and, he's a top manager and, he was getting bottom third of the division more often than not. So, yeah, they've been down twice, in the not too distant past. And yeah, they've just got to survive this season. And the other thing is the manager, whoever it is, comes in. Everyone else down there seems to have an identity, apart from maybe Norwich, for what they are about. You look at Burnley; they're struggling, but we know that when the weather gets colder, they get better. We know that they're tough defensively. They've got Dwight McNeil out wide. They've got a good new player in Cornet. And Chris Wood scores goals. You look at Palace, you look at Southampton, Leeds, whoever. They all have something about them. And Newcastle, you can't say it's drifting because of the changes of the last few weeks, but they're not. Yeah, it could be a very painful 13 games, I think it is, before the transfer window opens. And if they're already dead and buried, then I don't know who's going there.
Money talks, my friend. Money
Yeah.
talks. Speaking of drifting teams, our old friends over at Barcelona.
Mm.
No Messi, no Suarez,
No Neymar.
no
MSN
Neymar.
has gone. It's been bankrupted, and yeah, it's been a very traumatic 6 months for Barcelona. In fact, 18 months, you could say, probably since the 8-2 against Bayern. It's been pretty awful. Ronald Koeman has taken a lot of the blame for that, the new manager, but as several of the players have pointed out, they haven't got the personnel to play beautiful football anymore, and it's just about. It's really if they just have to get through this season and stay in the top four in Spain and make sure they don't lose the Champions League money and then try and recover. They're massively in debt, which makes that harder. But yeah, they did win last night or 2 nights ago in the Champions League. They beat Dynamo Kiev 1-0, which was not especially convincing, but it does keep them alive. We know that Bayern are in that group and are going to win it. So it's really, can they get second and get into the last 16 and stay reasonably close to the two Madrid teams at home? So it's been bad. Messi has been replaced effectively by Luke de Jong for the first part of the season. So they've been through a rough time, but I actually think things are starting to look a bit better for Barcelona now, actually.
I mean, it's hard because I'm sure folks can tell if they're watching. There's a slight age difference between you and I.
Mm-hmm.
The Barcelona that I have grown up with and watched with has been Messi.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd say Messi and co. You had your Messis, you had your Iniestas, you had your PKs, but it's still Messi.
Yeah,
it's the little magician. Whatever he touches turns to gold, and his time at Barcelona in that first team side was gold. There's no better way to put it. But you lose him, you lose that huge attacking threat. It forces defenders to come and go 2 on, 3 on. That there is where the likes of Suarez and Neymar, who of course could have created their own opportunities on a dime, but it forces those two open.
Yeah.
Without Suarez and Neymar, yeah, okay. Griezmann had an okay year, 2 back. He's now back at Atletico.
Yeah.
Doing what Griezmann does. But at least he was that good backup option if one of those three failed to fire. Who've they got now? Martin Braithwaite?
Yeah.
Not, like you said, I wouldn't exactly call that the most inspiring of replacements to Lionel Messi.
No. It's going to be a tough year, and maybe a bad 2 or 3 years for Barcelona. It's right what you're saying that he was Barcelona for a long time, and there's the thing that I found kind of disappointing, apart from the fact that he went to PSG, was you always associate him with Barcelona, and one club players are rare now in modern football. There was Paolo Maldini, who I remember, but you probably don't. Ryan Giggs was another one, obviously for Manchester United. And there's been a handful of these one-club players, and I really hoped he was the best one. Even through all those great players, he was the greatest one-club player ever. And now he's not that. And there is something sad about that. I think in terms of going forward, the big news the last few weeks is that Pedri has signed a new deal. So has Ansu Fati, both with €1 billion release clauses, so that if PSG come along, it's not going to be 200 million this time. It's basically they're there for life, or at least for the next 5 years, these two players. And if you look at the midfield when everyone's fit, it's Busquets, who is still there and still good, Pedri and Nigel de Jong. Front three, Aguero, who's obviously only just made his debut because he's been injured. Fatty, who's also been injured, and Memphis Depay, who is a top player. So it's not terrible. It's just there's no Messi, and it's really rebuilding the club. And I suppose they did that before when Ronaldinho was there, was succeeded by Messi. You got the era before Ronaldinho. You had the teams in the 90s with the Ronaldo team, the fat Ronaldo, we should say, not Cristiano.
The Ronaldo, not Cristiano.
Yes. Before that, you had the Johan Cruyff team. So Barcelona does move from era to era. It is just a club people will go there. They really want Raheem Sterling, who isn't Messi, but I think you add him to that front line, and they're competitive again. I mean, the one good thing for Barcelona is that La Liga is not as strong right now as it has been, in the last 20 years. I'd be amazed if a Spanish team won the Champions League this year or next. Obviously, Mbappe could be going to Real Madrid in the summer. That would change things. But the fact that it is a turned-down era in La Liga probably makes this period a little easier for Barcelona because they can at least try and be competitive at home. And Europe will just have to wait for a few years.
But it's Barcelona.
Yeah. I mean, they always come back. Even with massive debts, players will want to go there. The Sterling thing, they haven't got the money for Sterling, but because there's all the ex-Barcelona people at Manchester City, because Sterling has been a good player at City and is now maybe starting to become a problem, they'll find a way of making that work, I'm sure. Whether it's in January, I doubt, but by the summer, I expect that will be done. And they will be back. Even for all the debt that they've got, it's still one of the most valuable clubs in the world. And of course, there's fans back this year, and getting 90,000 to the Nou Camp every week does tend to ease the financial problems.
Yeah, very much so. And from a City perspective, they just bought Grealish for 100 mil. They're not going to want him be playing to be playing a backseat to Raheem Sterling, despite what Sterling is as a player.
Yeah, and we know that City really want Harry Kane on probably in the summer. I would be shocked if they are not the front runners for Erling Haaland when his release clause kicks in. So it sort of makes sense for everybody. And there probably is going to be a bit of we have the Messi and Ronaldo thing this summer, but next summer is going to be all the world's best younger strikers are going to be doing musical chairs. I think Harry Kane will probably go somewhere in the summer, Lewandowski possibly too. So I think we'll get through the January window, and then we're going to have probably about 4 months of who's going where amongst those forwards in the summer.
It's going to be 4 months of mayhem.
Yeah,
that's for sure. It's a great time to be a European soccer fan in that regard. For us Australians, we don't really have much to look forward to in the world of football. But Daniel Sturridge, he's off to Perth Glory to the A-League men's competition. It's now not the A-League and the W League. It's A-League men and A-League women. Go figure that one out.
Okay.
Yeah, enough said. But yeah, Daniel Sturridge at his prime, absolute baller, an absolute game breaker, can pierce through defenders like nothing else. But I mean, he looks at a blade of grass and he's out for 3 weeks. So,
that's an issue.
In terms of publicity, there we go. It's early here in Australia. Fantastic signing. Haven't had a player of that sort of caliber since Shinji Ono and Del Piero, when they were both in the league at the same time.
Yeah.
In terms of player quality, Jono, you've seen more of Sturridge recently than I have. Is he still got it?
If he can play 6-7 games without getting injured, I think he still can. He's only 32. I thought he was actually older than that. But if he can stay fit, he's definitely a good player. It's funny with Sturridge, he's kind of part of a generation of English players I always kind of think were the not quite generation, because England, if you remember, they had the inverted commas golden generation of Ferdinand and Lampard and Gerrard and Rooney. And now there's the Southgate era. But in between, there was this era of English players who were very hyped up, mainly because there wasn't a lot of talent around and we desperately needed someone to be the next big thing. And so you got Phil Jones, Jack Wilshere, Jack Rodwell, Tom Cleverley. And Daniel Sturridge was kind of one of those players. And like those players, had talent, maybe not Phil Jones, but hugely talented. But for one reason or another, it never consistently happened. I think he had that brilliant 18 months when he first went to Liverpool. That was a fantastic period when he had Suarez alongside him. And he was an equal partner in that. He was absolutely fantastic for a while. Then the injuries came. Then he fell out of favour with Jurgen Klopp. And then he obviously had these betting scandals he's been caught up in. And it's just felt for a long time he just needed a fresh start and just a run of games somewhere. So if they can keep him on the pitch, he's still he's still a talent. But it's really noticeable. Danny Welbeck, not as good as Sturridge, not as talented, same age, still playing in the Premier League, despite a lot of injury problems. Had a better England career as well, even though it's probably over now. So Sturridge still feels like one of those players who should have done more with what he had.
And like you said, at 32, he has time. It's only
it's
2-year deal, I believe.
Yeah.
So, even at 34, realistically, post this contract, say he just plays an absolute blinder next couple of years. Granted, it's the A-League. It's championship level football. Let's be realistic here. Even if he has a blinder couple of years, is there any chance that he comes back to the Premier League? Any chance?
I'd say there's a slight chance. He's one of those players where there's always going to be somebody who gets a bit desperate, especially around January transfer window time. There's always someone who's struggling or has got players injured and thinks, you know what, we know what he can do. 6-month contract, it's very low risk. Let's try that. Far worse players than Sturridge have come back like that. So he could. I mean, I do sort of suspect if he has a good time in the A-League and he only stays for 2 years, I suspect it's Rangers or Celtic next. He does smack of that kind of player who would finish his career in Glasgow, like Jermaine Defoe, who's there at the moment, who I think he's still playing. He's very old, but he's still playing, I think. But there's always the chance that a club like Watford would feel like a Daniel Sturridge club waiting to happen.
Hey, the way Norwich are going, if he gets on the field,
that's
3 games, then
yeah, Norwich are a strange one. I mean, one of the things that did occur to me this week with Steve Bruce getting sacked is Steve Bruce made his name as a player at Norwich, and they're bottom of the league in a relegation battle with Newcastle. They could they make him the manager and he has to go back to St James's Park with Norwich?
Oh,
that would be so much fun if it happened. I don't think Norwich would do that, but you've got to think it's a possibility. If Daniel Farker just walks out on his own accord, I maybe.
I could see the article headline now.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, if Sturridge has a great couple of years, I see no reason why. But signing for Perth, typically known to have some of the more attacking play in the league. They are a go forward kind of side.
Yeah.
Defense is questionable at best. It definitely fits Sturridge's style of play. It's just whether it comes across and whether he can almost sort of get accustomed again to the physical play.
Yeah, I mean he's for too long he's been a theoretically good player. it's can you have a run of games without picking up serious injury or even minor injuries, which is what seemed to happen at Liverpool. Particularly was I'm fit, I'm ready, plays 40 minutes. Oh, out for 3 weeks. 3 weeks later, he comes back, another minor niggle, and he just needs to break out of that cycle. And if he can, he will be a box office player in the A-League. There's no question he can still do it.
It's a matter of if, not when.
Yes.
So we shall see. But yeah, that'll do it. That's episode 1 of the False Nine podcast. Jono, 1 down. How many more to go?
Oh, hundreds, I'm sure.
Oh, it'll be fine. It'll be fantastic. We appreciate you for joining us.
Yeah.
Feel free to subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on Facebook and Twitter. There's not only us, so you got the deep takes from 3 from Devin, Isaiah, and Gary as well. So absolutely check that out. But yeah, that'll do us. That's 1 down. Many more to go. Jono, appreciate you jumping on, mate.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
We will catch you guys all next week.
Okay. See you all later.